what I'm going to do is the free consultation that we do give. It basically goes over everything that you basically need to know in order to be safe and happy on a GLP. All right, so these work 3 ways, and I clump all of them in together because they basically are the same. And we only talk about S and T. We do not talk about R because R is not released by Lilly at this point. So we don't talk about that one yet because I'm not allowed to prescribe it as a certified nurse practitioner in the United States. Does your practice promote weight training, proper nutrition, and hydration? Absolutely, 100%, because this is a lifestyle change. So we promote a whole lifestyle change that goes along with it. You have to do all of that in order to have that. Yes, we do not promote R because it is not FDA approved. I am not allowed to prescribe it. If I prescribe it, I will lose my license. So I only promote medications that are FDA regulated and are FDA promoted. I myself, when I would do things in the past, because I yo-yoed a lot in the very beginning. So when I came out of the military, I found myself in an unhealthy relationship with my ex. I was in a very unhealthy relationship with food because of, just life and just, I had my pregnancy and, so I yo-yoed a lot. So when I was in that unhealthy relationship with all of that stuff, and then I was going to nurse practitioner school, and that's when that light came on and it said, thank you. I was Navy also. So I was a corpsman in the Navy. But then when I came out of that, I was just, I spent probably 20, almost, I'd say almost 20 years of just horrible, unhealthy relationships with a lot of things. And that's when I was like this. And actually I was 20 pounds heavier than this at one point. So I was just in that really unhealthy relationship. So what I did is I really started this journey with GLPs about 4.5 years ago. So it was just kind of like, okay, we're going to keep this simple because when things are simple, people will do it. And that is why I was getting that 30 to 50% WL. It's simple. So GLPs work 3 ways. First, they shut down, I'm craving, I'm hungry. You have to pay attention to that. So when people are starting, or if you haven't done this, you need to do this. You need to learn to listen to your brain telling you you're not hungry, you're not craving. And it is super important that you pay attention to that. Now, listen, if you don't do that, do it. The second way that they work is they slow down your digestion from the top to the bottom. Now we're going to talk about the top first. If you aren't listening, or if you're not listening to your stomach telling you you're not hungry, you're not craving, you are going to overeat, which is super important. If you overeat, you're going to be really miserable. So you have to listen to it telling you, hey, you have food in your stomach and stop. Because if you overeat, guess what? You're probably going to throw up, which is miserable, and nobody wants to do that anyways. So what I tell people is, eat 2, I feel food in my stomach, stop. Then the third way is the insulin resistance, which is just, you can't really control that because it's super cool, because what happens is that is a part of that GLP that is really awesome. So the insulin resistance, what happens is as we age, as we get heavier, that blood sugar is just going to start getting put out wherever, and it's not stored properly, which makes us kind of go into that type 2 diabetic, which borderline diabetes, all of that stuff. So it really does not work right. So what happens when we start taking a GLP is the insulin just starts working better. Our pancreas starts working better. So our blood sugar is going to be better controlled. I'm going to tell you what to eat and what not to eat here in a minute. But what happens is that insulin resistance starts making our systems work better. So they've shown in research, this is not just Angela spewing information. They actually have shown in research, we have cardio protection, we have liver protection, kidney protection, neuroprotection. They actually just came out with research that shows colorectal protection. Then I just heard on the radio that they are showing that there is better mood improvement as well. So when you are looking at side effects, what is super important to pay attention to is side effects. If you're a person that has dietary issues already, so I'm a super sensitive stomach. So if you're somebody that has nausea issues, you're going to have nausea issues with this. So I ask patients, first off, do you get nauseous easily? Because if you do, you're going to have nausea issues with these medications, because that tells me I need to help this person. They need to go up in dose slowly, and they need to make sure they have Zofran on hand. So it's super important to make sure I'm very proactive with that person. I put a post out on my page. People went nuts. You do not have to have side effects with these medications. It is my job as your provider to make sure that I'm asking you, do you have nausea issues? Because if you have nausea issues in the beginning, before you start these, it is my job as your provider to make sure that you don't have nausea issues on these medications. That's my job. My job is to teach you what not to eat and make sure you have medications to prevent nausea. Okay? The other important thing is you don't just have to dose up every 4 weeks. That is, if you aren't have hunger and craving, don't dose up, okay? You don't need to dose up. We dose at my clinic per you. So if you are doing great at the lower dose, stay at the lower dose. Oftentimes when you dose up, you're going to have side effects. So don't dose up. Okay, the other big side effect is constipation. So if you're not moving your bowels daily before you start, you have to get those bowels moving daily now. Before you start, okay, those bowels need to be moving daily. I am an IBS, constipation, diarrhea. I go back and forth, okay? So it is super important that yes, I will talk about that water. It is super important because it comes in right now with the bowels. Fiber is essential. Everybody should be getting 24 to 30 grams a day of fiber. That's hard to do when we are cutting down your appetite, when we're listening to that brain telling us we're not hungry, we're not craving. So what you have to do is get your fiber. Now, did you guys know fiber does 3 amazing things for us? First, it's going to help with the glycemic control, okay? Second, it's going to help control your hunger. Third, it's going to help regulate your bowels. I personally recommend that you get a fiber supplement. I love gummies. So you're going to hear a lot about gummies, okay? So what I tell people, I love Metamucil gummies. I don't care what kind of fiber you take. I really don't care. Okay, so fiber is essential. Get your fiber. We're going to talk about what to eat here in a second. So I love Metamucil gummies, but you can do whatever you want for your fiber. You can do there's tons of different fiber out there. Then the other thing is you need to get, if you're somebody that's already constipated, start with the fiber slowly. I take fiber gummies 1 a day for a couple days, 2 a day for a couple days, 3 a day every day. If you start taking a fiber like it says on the label, all of it all at once, you're going to get bloated, you're going to get bloated, you're going to get gassy, and nobody's going to want to be around you. Okay, so fiber starts slowly. Then what you're going to do is make sure you're getting your water. Now, 64 to 80 ounces is to what you should start. Your goal is to get. If you have caffeine, you need an additional whatever that caffeine is. So if it's an 8-ounce glass of coffee or 8-ounce cup of coffee, you need an additional 8 ounces of water. Okay. So caffeine, an additional 8 ounces of coffee or an 8-ounce glass of water. So 6480 ounce is your base. Then you need an additional of whatever the coffee is or tea or whatever. So if you have a 32-ounce glass of iced tea, yes, you need a 32 additional 8 ounces of water. All right. The other thing that is so important is electrolytes. Yeah, people do assume that coffee is your water because it's made with water. No, it's not. It doesn't count, people. Caffeine is caffeine. You have to have additional water. The other important thing is electrolytes. Now, here's a very, 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 very important thing about electrolytes. You have to watch the sodium in electrolytes. So when you look at a label of electrolytes, make sure the highest one that I recommend with sodium is Propel. You want to make sure that your sodium is less than 260 of electrolyte or sodium, sorry. So any of those electrolytes that are out there that are higher than 260 of sodium, do not drink it. So there are so many of them out there, unless you are profusely sweating or you are doing like a high intense exercise. You do not need that sodium if you are over the age of like 30 because you can't process it. When you are getting that sodium and you're doing that high intense sodium and you're over the age of like 30, you are increasing your fluid retention. You're increasing your blood pressure. You are increasing the risk of hypertension, edema. You aren't able to process it. You do not need more than 2,000 milligrams of sodium in a day. You are going to really cause problems. LaCroix, I don't like bubbles, but if you want that, that's fine. And you are okay. That is okay. As long as you're watching that sodium intake. Some people like the bubbles. I can't do it anymore. I do take sodium. Yes. All right. Electrolytes. You need at least 2 packets of electrolytes a day because when you're drinking a lot of water, what you're doing is you're depleting your electrolytes. So you need electrolytes. So just doing Himalayan salt might not give you enough electrolytes. Lemon juice is not giving you electrolytes. It's giving you the acidity. Coconut water might not have all the other electrolytes in it. I do Propel, 2 packets of Propel a day. I get a lot of leg cramps. I have for probably the past 20 years. So that's what I like. Metamucil gummies are the ones that I do. Liquid IV, no. They have 550 milligrams of sodium in them. So I do not recommend liquid IV. Too much sodium. There's a body one that has way too much sodium. If you put it in your water and it tastes salty, do not do it. Belly Welly, yes. A lot of people think Belly Welly is fine. And yes, Belly Welly is okay. Okay. So that is on the fiber and the water. The lower sodium is better because the sodium gets to be too much and it will cause you to retain fluid. And the reason I know this is I have this amazing scale in my office and I've looked at thousands of weigh-ins. And what we were seeing is, good morning, Yorkiana. What we were seeing is people were weighing in. I can look at fluid retention and I can look at hydration on my scale. And people weren't becoming hydrated and I was having fluid retention. And I started telling people, let's try electrolytes. Once I was getting people to do electrolytes, I was getting hydration. But then I had one lady, her son is a promoter for liquid IV. And I'm like, what in the world is happening here? She was getting hydrated, but she had edema in her legs. And we're able to scale or to grade edema. And I couldn't get her edema to go down. I actually put her on a water pill. Could not. And I'm okay, what electrolytes are you doing? She was on Liquid IV because he's a promoter of it. So she was able to get it for free. So I was like, oh my goodness. So I took her off the Liquid IV. I kept her on a water pill. Her edema went away within a week. And it was the Liquid IV. It was too much salt. So I started looking at, okay, what electrolytes were people taking and what is happening here? And that's how I figured it out. So that is how I know the difference and how I was able to figure it out. So that is so I'm not just spewing information. I'm actually looking at the research, and I'm able to tell you actual legit research from patients and looking at it and figuring out. So Metamucil gummies are absolutely amazing. So Metamucil gummies are sugar-free. And what I do is I actually drink or eat 2-3 of those a day. And when you are doing the Metamucil gummies, you want to make sure that you are doing them every day, but start slowly. This is the magnesium 14-in-1. It is VEV. This has L-theanine, zinc, ashwagandha, and you need to quit. So this is, you take this at bedtime, but it also helps with your bowels. Then this is the Leaf Air. And this is for the ladies, but this is a pre and probiotic. But it is also good for the female health. So those are what I do every single day. And then if I miss a bowel movement for one day, I'm taking Miralax. And Miralax is, it's nice because Miralax is non-bowel addicting. And it really is a good thing to have around, because if you miss a bowel movement for one day. So what I tell people when they start, take your Metamucil gummies every day. Then have your Miralax available. And then if that Miralax doesn't work, or your Metamucil, start your Metamucil gummies. Then if the Miralax doesn't work, then what I want you to do is take Miralax if you miss one day. But if you start noticing that you're taking that Miralax more often, then start taking this or this. And then for the guys, this is the women's version of ZenWise, but for the guys, there is a ZenWise male version, or just it's an everybody version. But ZenWise has a great probiotic digestive enzyme, and it's amazing. But what you want to do is that Miralax is, if you start noticing you're doing like 2 to 3 days a week of Miralax, that's when you start adding in those other things. Because if you're adding in those other things, you're going to start noticing that you are feeling better and you're having that daily bowel movement. You need the daily bowel movement. It's going to help your weight loss. It's going to make you feel better. If you have good gut health, you're going to have great everything health. Okay? Bowel movement every day it's pivotal. It's so pivotal. You have to have it. And this is what to eat and what not to eat. Remember, I said keep it simple. So when you are learning this, remember, listen to the brain and what the brain is telling you to eat or not eat. Second, listen to your stomach. Don't overeat. When your stomach says, oh, I have food in it, stop. Okay? Then the third is the insulin resistance. So what I tell people, that I keep it super, super simple. Do not eat simple carbs. Simple carbs are processed by man. Anything processed by man is going to cause you to be sick. Indigestion, belching, nausea. It can cause you to feel like crap. It can cause you to not feel good at all. So that is your white rice, pasta, sugar, flour. Avoid it, especially when you first start. It is not good for you. That is why I felt like that. That is why I was like this. I was addicted to sugar. Loved it. Constantly loved it. So it was super important that I didn't have it, because if I did, I gained weight. So I avoided it like the Black Plague. Okay. It is very important that we don't eat it, because if we do, we gain. So it is really important that we don't have it at all. Okay. So if you do eat it, it's going to make you not feel good. So what I say, please, please, please just avoid it at first, because it's really going to cause you problems. All right. So what I recommend is not eating it at all. Then what you do want to eat, 25% of your diet is complex carbs. Complex carbs are naturally from the earth. Those are your vegetables, your roots, your potatoes, your whole grains, your oats. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you get those, okay? Now, fruit. Fruit is extremely high glycemic, so your body can't necessarily tell you if it is a sugar or if it's a fruit. So I tell people, when you're going to eat a fruit, make sure that you are going to eat it on a day that you're going to be more active, or maybe on a day that you are going to exercise, or right before you exercise. You don't want to eat those on days that you're just going to be chilling, or, because your body just can't really tell the difference. So you want to avoid those. Now, you need the complex carbs for energy. They give you your energy. So they're really, really important, and they really do help you to have the energy. Now, what is super important is your protein. If you aren't getting your protein, you are going to lose your hair and you're going to lose your muscle. So it is super important to make sure you get your protein, because if you're not getting that protein, you are going to lose your hair. Now, the other thing is collagen. You have to get the collagen. Getting that protein, drink it, okay? It is really difficult when you're on a GLP, because it's decreasing your appetite. It's decreasing your want for food. She's being very demanding. I am so sorry about this. So what I highly recommend is drinking it. Now, women and men, the best way to get to know how much protein you are, we just found out that there's scales available for under $30 that's going to tell you how much protein you need, or how much muscle you have. So what you need to do is get one of these scales. It's under $30. It's going to give you your fat mass, muscle mass, and your water mass, which is really important for what we were just discussing earlier about your fluid retention. So what you do is you find out your muscle mass, and then every pound of muscle is a gram of protein. So a general rule is, what you need to do is 100 to 120 grams of protein for women, and 120 to 150 grams of protein for men. Okay, so it's super important to get that protein. Now, if you notice that you are if you notice that you are already losing your hair, then I highly recommend that you are getting your like a Nutrafol hair vitamin. I have a good multivitamin in my store that is a 47-in-1 hair vitamin, and I really do recommend that one. Now, and don't overeat, because you will feel nauseous and you might even throw up. So I do recommend that you listen. You have to learn to listen to your body. You have to learn to listen to your stomach. You have to learn to listen to your mind. If you are just starting these, you need to spend 30 days learning to listen to your head. If you've not ever stopped to learn to listen to your head, then you need to do this, because if you don't, you are going to miss it, and you have to do that. So it's very, very important that you do that. Next, expected weekly loss. So this is a difficult, well, it's not a difficult question, but it's a question that is a multi-level answer. Okay, so the best way to answer this is, if you are a BMI above 30, Women is going to be 1 to 3 a week. If you are a guy and your BMI is above 30, it's 3 to 5 a week. When your BMI gets the 24.9 to 24.9 to 29, women it's 1 to 3 a month, and guys 3 to 5 a month. When you get down below that 24.9, everybody, it becomes practically impossible and it's very difficult. So it is a challenge, but everybody's different. Don't look at your neighbor and don't look online because you're expecting yourself to be like everybody else. Don't think that just because, Sally and Mary are doing it this way, that you're going to do it this way. Don't expect everybody to be, because we're all different. It's okay. Go find it. So everybody everybody expects to be like everybody else. And don't do that. It's okay that we're different. And, you may have a great L, this week and next week, but then you learn to have a slowdown, which is totally fine too. So we all need to just kind of think about, what ourselves are. So Yorkiana says, my muscle mass is 104.5. So I need 105 grams of protein. Yes. Or more. I would even try to bump it up to 120.